now it's time to talk about the basic structure that we're going to see for many of our Java class definitions. And so we want to talk about the typical methods that you would have when you are writing a class definition. Okay, and this will be very useful because that's what we're going to be doing in Lab 4. Okay, so remember, I think we talked about this before in a previous video. What is contained in a Java class definition? What are the typical contents? Okay, well, three major things: the properties, the constructor method, and then other methods. So the properties, or the data that each object will contain, these are values that each object will store describing something about the object, a property of the object. Okay, the boats had an anchor X and an anchor Y. Okay, that kind of thing. So that's the properties. Then the constructor method must be part of the class definition, and the purpose, or it's used whenever at another place in the program we want to make a new object from this class. So we want to instantiate an object, and we say, set something equals a new boat. Okay. And we also pass in as parameters values that will be used to as the initial values of properties of the object. But then there are other methods. Now, early in this semester, we've only seen the draw method because that was what was used. We were working with visual objects, and the thing we wanted to do with them is display them on the screen. But there's many types of objects that are not visual or just going to be something that's drawn on the screen. Objects are a powerful way to capture all of the data that we want to keep track of about real world things. Okay, and so many times the classes that we're going to be writing are not visual or graphical. Okay, so what we need is a way to access the properties of the objects so that we can ask the object we can retrieve the values from the object, or we can change them from their value that they had initially. Okay, so as an example, let's see if we wanted to represent information about pet dogs. So let's come up with a class definition for pet dogs. Well, what are some properties we might want to have about dogs? Well, I came up with 4 simple ones. You might have others that you could keep track of. We could have a big long list. I didn't want it to be too long. Okay, but what's the dog's name? Okay, and then also whenever we're thinking about properties, we want to think about the data type that goes along with that. So a dog has a name, which would be a text string, letters and punctuation, that kind of thing. Each dog will have an age. Now, I decided to use an integer value to keep track of whole years only. If you wanted to say a dog is 7.4 years old, then you could use a double precision, right, value. But I'm just going to use integers just to keep things simple. So whole years only. You keep track of the breed. What's the breed of the dog? And that would be a text string because it's words and letters and stuff. And also maybe the weight, so in whole pounds only, so then you have another integer. You could use doubles if you wanted more precision, but let's just say we have integers. So simple, 4 properties, 2 strings, 2 integers. Okay. Now, what might you want to do with a pet dog object? Well, once we've created the dog, we would have several dog objects in my program. Maybe I would want to find out, hey, what's the name of that particular dog? Or what is the age of a dog object? And so we want to be able to ask the object, hey, what is the value of one of your properties? Okay. Another thing we want to do is ask the object to change one of its properties, to set its property, a particular property, to a new value. So maybe the dog gained weight, maybe the dog got older. Okay, we changed the name of the dog, whatever. Okay, so we'd like to be able to change the properties. And then also, it might be nice to say, well, what's all the information about the dog? So we could return a descriptive text string that will show all of the property values that's formatted nicely. Okay, so we're going to talk about methods that will do this. Okay, so in almost all of our class definitions, we're going to have these methods. Okay, we're going to have a group of methods that we're going to call getter methods. The purpose of these is to retrieve or get the current value of one of the properties of the object. The reason we call them getter methods is that we're going to use the naming convention of always starting the name of the method with get followed by whatever the property is. So we'll say get breed or get weight for this pet dog example. Another group of methods is what we're going to call them setter methods. And the purpose of these is to set the current value of one of the properties to a new value that we specify. Okay. The reason we call them setters is because the name will start with the word set followed by whatever. So set weight, set breed, etc. And then it's helpful to be able to convert all of the data, all of the properties of a method into a string. And so it's standard Java practice to have what's called a toString method as part of the class definition. And the purpose of this is to build a text string from some or all of the properties of the object and then return it as the result of the method. Okay. Now, let me point out something before we take a look at the code for this. There's two different styles of methods in Java. There are methods where we are asking the object for like a question and we are expecting to receive an answer. For example, getter. If I ask the object, hey, I don't know, Mr. Dog, what is your breed? Or like, in other words, I'd be calling the getBreed method for the Mr. Dog object. Okay, I'm expecting an answer to come back. So that's like asking someone, hey, what's the square root of 47? Okay, I need to wait for the answer to come back. And 47 isn't a perfect square. How about 49? What's the square root of 49? Then I'd be expecting the person to, or whoever I asked, the correct response would be 7. Okay, so getter methods and the toString method, they're returning an answer to the place where we ask for the method to be carried out. Whereas a setter method, we're not really asking for an answer. We want something to happen. So we're saying, hey, Mr. Dog, change your age to 16 or change your weight to 30. Okay, I'm not waiting for an answer to come back. I don't expect them to say 17.2 or something like that. I'm expecting something to happen. It'd be like if I said to I don't know, one of my children, hey, please go turn off the lights. Okay, they're not going to say George Washington, give me some kind of answer. They're hopefully something's going to happen. So that's what a setter method is an example of. Also, the draw method was kind of like that. We said to the object, hey, boat, please draw yourself. We weren't looking for an answer coming back. It's more like a command or a request for something to happen. Those types of methods are called void methods because there is no answer coming back. Okay, so here would be the Java definition for this pet dog class that I've described previously. So so all class definitions start public class and then whatever the name of the class is. And then the first thing inside the body is going to be the declaration of the properties. So all the property declarations for an object start with the keyword private, and then we have the data type and then the name of the property. So we have a private string property called name, a private integer called age, a private string called breed, and a private integer called weight. Okay, so every pet dog object is going to have those 4 properties. Now, the next thing is going to be the constructor method. Remember, the purpose of the constructor method is to set up the initial value of some or all of the properties. Okay, and so in order to do that, the form of the constructor method always starts with the keyword public, and then immediately followed by the name of the class. So this is the class is pet dog, so the constructor is public pet dog. Okay, now inside parentheses is going to be a comma-separated list of parameter declarations that the data types have to match the types of the properties, and the name of the parameter is going to be something that is similar to but not exactly the same name as the property here. And then inside the body of the constructor method, inside the curly braces, we're going to have a series of assignment statements where the right-hand side of the assignment statement is the parameter and the left-hand side is the property for the class. So you wouldn't want to say it's wrong and it won't work if you say n equals name, a equals age. It's got to be the property on the left and the parameter name on the right. Okay, and so you can use more than one letter here if you want, but you don't want to say integer weight, spelling it exactly the same way. That wouldn't work. Okay. Now, here are the getter methods for the definition. So I have this pet dog class definition goes 4 pages on my PowerPoint. We'll see a demo of it in a later video where I'll show you the whole thing. So the getter methods, all getter methods have the same format. They start with the keyword public. Then they have the data type of the answer that is going to be returned by the method. And then the name of the method starts with get, followed by the name of the property. And we capitalize the first letter of the property, even though the property name doesn't have it that way. That's easier to read for humans. So the get name method is going to return a string, and it doesn't. I don't need, if I say, hey, pet dog, what's your name? I don't need to give it any data to work with. Okay? It'll look up in its internal memory and return. The answer that's returned for this method is the value of the name property. Okay? Return has to be used for any method that has a data type here, so string or integer. So now for get age, what is the data type of age? It's integer, so that's why I have to have integer here. Public integer get age, returning age. Public string get breed, okay, because breed is a string, so I'm returning breed, so that has to be string. So you got to be careful. You can copy one of these and paste them, but then you have to make sure you change the data type so that they match the appropriate thing that you're working with. And weight is an integer, so the get weight method would be a public method that returns an integer, and it's simply return weight. So the getters are always just return whatever and make sure the data type matches. Okay? The third part of this would be the setter methods. Now remember, the setter methods, as I said, they aren't returning an answer. They are doing something. And so just like the draw method, the setter methods are void. There is no return value. And so I'm going to say public, all the setters have the same structure, public void set name. Now, if I said, hey, Mr. Dog, set your age, that's not enough information for the dog to do that, because the dog would say, well, what do you want me to set it to? Okay, so with setters, we have to have something inside the parentheses, which will be a parameter, which is the value that will be used to set this property in the method. Okay, so the setters are actually kind of like one line, but they're all similar to the constructor in that what we're doing is we are accepting one parameter of the proper data type and then storing that parameter in the property for the class. So remember, the pet dog class had name, age, breed, and weight. That's why these are along the left side of the equal signs here. And what we're doing inside the setters is taking the parameter and storing that in the property. Okay, so public void set age. Okay, we have to tell it what age we're going to use, so we'll call that A, and then take A and store that in the property age. Okay, set breed is a void method. Breed is a string, so we have to accept a string parameter, and we're going to store that in breed. And then set weight, also a void method. We accept an integer called WT and store WT in weight. And then the last part of the pet dog class definition is this toString method. The toString method is we're converting the properties to a string. So we're going to say, hey, Mr. Dog, would you take all your properties and give me a string that shows me what they are? Okay, so I'm expecting an answer to come back, so it's not void. ToString is not void. It's going to be public string to string, no parameters inside the parentheses. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be building a string with the concatenation operator, the plus. It's a combination of the properties and strings here. So whatever the dog's name would be is whatever the breed is, that weighs whatever the weight is, pounds, and is whatever the age is, years old. Okay, so it's a combination of properties and actual strings in quotes, and they're combined with the plus sign, and I'm building that string, so I'm storing that in answer and then returning answer. Okay, so that's my toString method, and then that's the end of the dog class, the pet dog class. Okay, so let's take a look in the next video at a demonstration of how this might work with a program that declares pet dog objects, instantiates them with values, and then works with them.